Breaking. Trump said Iran's military is 90% destroyed. He said Iran has been totally decapitated. He said the war objectives are nearly complete. And then, less than 24 hours later, he went on social media and begged China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom to send warships to the Middle East. Think about that contradiction for one moment. If Iran is destroyed, why does the most powerful military on earth need help from 5 other countries to open a waterway? That is the question nobody in mainstream media is answering clearly today. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening, why Trump's statements don't add up, what is really going on with this war on day 16 and what it means for you. Subscribe right now. Drop a comment if you are watching live. Let's get into it. Let's put the facts side by side because the gap between them is extraordinary. Trump said Iran's military is already 100% destroyed. He said it is easy for Iran to continue threatening ships with drones, mines, and short-range missiles. He said the U.S. will be bombing the hell out of Iran's shoreline. He said warships from other countries need to come and help keep the Strait open. Those 4 statements cannot all be true at the same time. If Iran's military is 100% destroyed, it cannot threaten ships with drones and missiles. If it is easy for Iran to keep threatening ships, then the military is not 100% destroyed. If the U.S. military is the most powerful on Earth and just struck 6,000 targets across Iran in 16 days, it should not need 5 other countries to open a 33-kilometer wide waterway. Iran's foreign minister went on television and said it plainly. He said the U.S. is now begging others, even China, to make the Strait safe. He called it proof that the American security umbrella has proven to be full of holes. He is not entirely wrong. Here is what is actually happening on the ground today, March 15th. Isfahan, Iran's 3rd largest city and a major industrial hub, was struck by multiple airstrikes this morning. At least 15 people were killed when a strike hit a refrigerator and heater factory in the city. Residents reported explosions throughout the night. One resident told CNN that a powerful bomb struck the city and shook everywhere. He said it was horrifying. He said his wife had a panic attack for the 3rd time that week, and they were leaving Isfahan. Additional strikes hit near Shiraz, with 20 explosions reported. Heavy explosions in southern Tehran. Dezful Air Base struck. Khomeini and Hamadan were targeted. The port of Jask in Hormuz province showed extensive damage in aerial footage. Meanwhile, Iran fired 7 separate ballistic missile barrages at Israel overnight. 2 people were treated for injuries in Holon near Tel Aviv. Fires broke out in central Israel after missile impacts. Israeli police were handling multiple impact sites simultaneously. Iran also attacked U.S. bases. A missile struck the helipad inside the U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad. The U.S. Embassy has now told all American citizens to leave Iraq immediately. The Victoria military base on the outskirts of Baghdad was hit and caught fire. Kuwait's Ahmed al-Jaber air base was struck by 2 drones, injuring 3 soldiers. The Fujairah port in the UAE, one of the world's most important ship refueling hubs and located just outside the Strait of Hormuz, suspended all oil loading operations after a drone attack and fire. And Iran's Revolutionary Guard issued a direct warning to people in the UAE. They called on people to evacuate ports, docks, and American installations. That warning is designed to cause maximum economic disruption by terrifying shipping companies and port workers. Does that sound like a country whose military is 90% destroyed? Drop a comment with your honest answer. I want to know what you think. Trump posted on Truth Social asking China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the UK to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz. Not one of those countries immediately said yes. China gave no response. China is Iran's largest oil customer. It has strong economic ties with Tehran and has no interest in being seen as joining an American-led military operation against Iran. Japan's government said it is bound by its pacifist constitution. Its prime minister said just last week that Japan had no plans to send minesweepers to the Strait. Trump's post put Japan in a deeply uncomfortable position days before a summit between the 2 leaders. South Korea gave no immediate response. The UK Ministry of Defense said it was discussing options with allies. French officials said they were working to assemble a coalition to secure the Strait, but only once the security situation stabilizes. In other words, not yet. Switzerland distanced itself completely. Switzerland refused 2 U.S. requests to allow American reconnaissance aircraft to fly through Swiss airspace on their way to Iran. They approved a maintenance flight and 2 transport aircraft, but refused the military surveillance missions. Even traditional U.S. allies are quietly creating distance. And there is something even more significant that you need to understand. 3 sources familiar with back-channel efforts told reporters that Trump's administration has actively rejected multiple attempts by Middle Eastern allies to begin diplomatic negotiations aimed at ending this war. Gulf states, who are being attacked by Iran while hosting U.S. military bases, have been pushing for talks. Trump's team said no. So on one hand, Trump is asking countries to send warships to help him. On the other hand, he is blocking the diplomatic off-ramps that those same countries are trying to create. That is not a coherent strategy. That is a White House, where different people are pulling in different directions simultaneously. Fortune reported this week that Trump's own AI czar warned that Iran has a dead man's switch that could make Gulf states almost uninhabitable. That is an extraordinary warning coming from inside the administration. What happens if no countries send warships? What happens if the Strait stays closed for another month? The world is about to find out. Isfahan is not just any city. And its destruction is not just a military story. Isfahan is home to 2.2 million people. It is one of the most historically significant cities in the entire Islamic world. It was the capital of the Safavid Empire in the 16th and 17th centuries. Its architecture, its mosques, its palaces, its bazaars, its bridges over the Zayandeh River are considered among the greatest achievements of human civilization. UNESCO had already issued warnings about damage to Iran's heritage sites earlier this month. Strikes on Isfahan on March 9th damaged Naksh-e-Jahan Square, the Chehel Satoon Palace, Ali Kapu, the Shah Mosque, the Jameh Mosque, and Teimouri Hall. UNESCO stated that 5 of Iran's World Heritage sites have been damaged or are at serious risk. Isfahan also has major military and industrial significance. The city houses Iran's main uranium conversion facility. It has one of Iran's largest steel production complexes. It is a center for Iran's defense manufacturing industry. The strike on the factory today killed 15 civilians making refrigerators and heaters. Those workers were not soldiers. They were people going to work on a Sunday morning. This is the reality of modern urban warfare. Military targets and civilian workplaces exist in the same cities. Strikes on military-adjacent infrastructure kill people making household appliances. 3,750 people have now been killed across the region since February 28th. The human rights activists' news agency says more than 3,000 of those deaths were inside Iran alone. Every day that number grows. Share this video if you believe the world should not forget these numbers while watching geopolitical strategy debates. Fujairah is one of the most important oil trading and ship refueling ports in the world. It sits just outside the Strait of Hormuz on the Gulf of Oman side, meaning it is used by ships that want to pick up fuel without entering the contested waterway. Today, Fujairah suspended all oil loading operations. A drone struck the area, fires broke out, port workers evacuated. Iran's military spokesperson called on people in the UAE to leave ports and American facilities. The message was clear. Not even the ports outside the Strait are safe anymore. Oil prices have risen more than 40% since February 28th. They remain above $100 a barrel. The Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas normally flows, is effectively closed to ships from countries Iran considers enemies. Iran's foreign minister confirmed the strait is only open to ships from friendly nations. He said it is closed to tankers and ships of enemies during the war. The U.S. has released emergency oil reserves. Trump lifted Russian oil sanctions temporarily. None of it has brought prices back to pre-war levels. And now Fujairah, the emergency alternative for tankers avoiding the strait, is under attack. The energy shock that started 2 weeks ago is getting worse every day, not better. India has received special treatment. Iran granted safe passage to Indian gas tankers through the strait, acknowledging India's careful diplomatic neutrality throughout this war. India is one of the few major economies quietly benefiting from this conflict, buying discounted Iranian and Russian oil while maintaining relationships with all sides. Every other major economy is absorbing higher costs daily. This is the story within the story this week that most channels are missing. Trump is sending contradictory signals because his own administration is not unified. On one side, you have officials who believe the military campaign is succeeding and Iran will collapse soon. Defense Secretary Hegseth has been the most aggressive voice, consistently pushing for more strikes and more pressure. On the other side, you have officials who are alarmed by the economic consequences and the lack of an exit strategy. Trump's AI czar, David Sachs, issued a public warning this week that Iran has a dead man's switch. He said if Iran's leadership is eliminated or cornered completely, it could trigger automatic responses that make Gulf states almost uninhabitable. He said the U.S. needs to get out of this war. That is not a fringe opinion. That is someone inside Trump's own inner circle saying publicly that this war has gone too far. Trump himself has sent mixed signals throughout. He said military objectives were pretty well complete, then said the U.S. will bomb the hell out of the shoreline for as long as necessary. He said Iran is 100% destroyed, then asked 5 countries to send warships because Iran can still threaten ships. The anatomy of a split in the White House is real, and when a wartime administration is divided, wars become unpredictable. Russia is watching. Moscow expressed extreme dissatisfaction with a UN Security Council resolution condemning Iran while omitting mention of U.S. and Israeli attacks. Russia has repeatedly said the entire crisis is the result of unprovoked aggression by the U.S. and Israel. Russia will not help the U.S. and has significant ability to make U.S. diplomatic efforts more difficult in international forums. China is watching. China has not condemned Iran. China has not agreed to send warships. China is buying Iranian oil and waiting. The U.S. started this war with 2 allies, Israel and itself. On day 16, it is asking 5 countries for help and getting polite non-answers. Step back from everything and look at Iran's strategy objectively. Iran's conventional military has been massively degraded. Missile stockpiles are reduced. Air Force capabilities are severely limited. Naval assets have been lost. Ground forces have taken heavy casualties from airstrikes. But Iran has not tried to fight a conventional war against the U.S. and Israel. It never expected to win that way. Iran's strategy has been to impose maximum economic pain on the world, close the Strait, attack Gulf ports, strike U.S. bases across multiple countries, keep firing enough missiles to force Israel to burn through its air defense interceptors, drag the conflict out until the economic pressure forces the U.S. to negotiate. And it is working, at least partially. Oil is above $100. The Strait is closed. Gulf commerce is disrupted. U.S. allies are quietly pushing for talks. The U.S. military is operating at extraordinary cost, over $1.5 billion per day by Pentagon estimates. The Wall Street Journal reported this week that Trump has lost control of this war. He badly misjudged Iran's ability to retaliate. The region is on fire. That assessment is labeled as the journal's analysis, not confirmed fact. But the evidence supports a version of it. Iran cannot beat the U.S. militarily. But Iran does not need to beat the U.S. militarily. It needs to make the war too expensive to continue. And on day 16, that calculation is at least partially succeeding. This section is clearly my analysis based on current evidence. The warship coalition Trump is asking for will not come together quickly. China will not send warships against Iran. Japan is constitutionally limited. The UK and France will say they are considering it until the security situation improves, which means not now. Without a naval coalition, the US has 2 options. It can try to open the Strait unilaterally with its own naval forces, which Trump has signaled by saying the US will bomb Iran's shoreline and shoot Iranian boats out of the water. Or it can negotiate. Trump said publicly he is not ready to make a deal with Iran right now. But his administration has also quietly started sending signals. Reports indicate that Omani mediators have been in contact with Iranian officials about humanitarian corridors and economic pressure relief. The realistic scenario in the next 7 to 14 days is this. Military strikes continue on both sides. Iran keeps firing missiles at Israel and attacking Gulf infrastructure. The U.S. escalates strikes on Iran's remaining military capabilities. The economic pain keeps rising. At some point, one of 3 things breaks the stalemate. Iran's ability to fire missiles collapses completely from depletion. A Gulf state suffers a catastrophic energy infrastructure strike that forces international intervention, or a back-channel deal through Qatar or Oman gives both sides enough to claim victory. The variable nobody can predict is whether the White House split produces a policy change before one of those three things happens. Day 16, Trump said Iran is 90% destroyed. Then he asked China for warships. Isfahan is burning. Fujairah port is closed. Iran fired 7 missile barrages at Israel overnight. The U.S. embassy in Baghdad told Americans to leave Iraq immediately. 3,650 people are dead. 16 days into a war that was supposed to be quick and decisive. You now know what the headlines are not connecting for you. The contradiction between what is being said and what is actually happening, the divided White House, the economic strategy Iran is running, and the realistic path forward. This is the most important story in the world right now, and most people are getting a fraction of the truth. Hit subscribe for daily updates. Share this with one person who needs to understand what is really happening. And tell me in the comments, do you think Trump has a real plan to end this war, or is he improvising day by day? I will be back tomorrow with Day 17. Stay safe, stay informed.